coach your team, but don't wait for perfection. Don't expect them to sell like you. It's okay. They don't need to sell the same amount as you. They need to sell as excellently as possible. For those of you who are really good at selling, it's probably like they're going to sell 80% to whatever your 100% was. Your job is to lead and level them up over time. Leadership isn't about waiting until your team gets better. It's getting in the trenches to coach them while making the space to lead. And so you have to really be able to actually map up enough margin and white space on your calendar so you actually have the time to lead them. Hey, beautiful friend. If you're a longtime listener of the podcast who's been dying to work with me but hasn't pulled the trigger yet, I have an incredible opportunity to work with me for a fraction of the cost. If your estheticians can't explain your signature plans or your new injectors panic every time they have to sell a high-ticket consult, it's not their fault. It's the system, or more specifically, your lack of one. That's exactly why I built Ask Heather AI, the first strategist level tool for aesthetic and wellness CEOs who want to scale with precision and stop flying by the seat of their pants. Inside, you get 3 powerful tools, each designed to solve the exact gaps that keep your growth tied to you. Turn your basic menu into a branded high-ticket signature offer suite your whole team can sell. Train every team member to lead premium consults with confidence, even if they've never sold a thing. Write magnetic messaging that attracts premium patients without sounding like every other clinic online. These are the same frameworks we've used to scale clinics to 7 figures and beyond, and they used to cost 5 figures to access. Now, you can have them in your back pocket. Try Ask Heather AI for 30 days and see what happens when you stop guessing and start scaling with words that work. Head over to heathertrevine.com/trial to learn more. Hello, my beautiful friend. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. In this episode, we are going to dive into a problem that I see with many of my clients, and I thought I would bring it to the podcast to sort of riff my solutions to the problem. So for many of you, you started your business with a mission, right? To help people to do meaningful work, but you also started your business so that you could actually create true freedom for yourself. And what happens with many of the high performing providers that I work with, that for many of you, you're still seeing patients maybe 3, 4, 5 days a week. And you're doing the other work too, right? You're doing the marketing, the team leadership, the growth planning at night, after your kids maybe go to bed or over the weekend. And I've got news for you. That's not a sustainable business. And I see it time and time again that it's a one-way ticket to burnout. So you can't grow your business if you are stuck inside it. Now, you have heard this cliched fact so many times in so many different ways. I mean, it's like, how many Pinterest or Instagram quotes can you possibly see on it? But when you are inside of a room, most of your working hours throughout the week, you will not have the ability to actually lead the business the way that you want to lead it. Now, in the beginning, this actually works for many of you. Many of you grew your businesses initially as a practitioner, whether you're a injector, you're a physician, you're an NP, you're an RN, you're a PA, you're an esthetician, right? And so what worked for many of you in the beginning is that you were really, really excellent at actually providing the service. You were an excellent technician, as they say. And so you were able to grow your sales enough and grow your business enough through that excellence to where that is why you were able to have enough revenue to actually bring on team members, right? And for some of you, you may not have brought on any team members yet either. So how do you actually, the question I get oftentimes is, how do we actually, when we are producing such a lion's share of the revenue each and every single month, how do we actually step out of working inside of the treatment room every month so that we can work more on the business? So the first thing I'll say is that you have to have time to work on the business. And then you also have to get third-party help, if you will, whether it's a coach or, peers or what have you that you really, really trust. You got to be careful there too, because sometimes peers don't always give the best advice, and sometimes coaches don't always give the best advice too. And it's like, I use this analogy all the time. When you are stuck inside the mason jar, it's impossible to see the label on the outside of the mason jar. So it's impossible to get that 30-foot view to see what is actually happening and to have that clarity, if you will. To piggyback on that, it's also, if you don't spend time, if you don't have time every single week to work on things outside of actually delivering services, then the business is always going to be heavily reliant on you. So if you want to keep injecting forever or delivering a whatever service that you provide forever, that's great. But if you want a business that gives you time freedom and margin, then that's a different game. And you will not be able to be or have the lion's share of your hours inside of a room. It's not even just about quitting your craft, so to speak. It's about creating off options. So you have to think strategically about how can you design a business where you can actually work your way out of being one of the main providers. So here are some of the things that I call founders' traps, so to speak, and why many of you end up staying stuck. So the first trap is that you're the best at selling, right? Because you built the business from scratch. You are the best at selling, right? And especially you have that story as well too. And you expect your team to sell and perform like you, or you're like waiting for your team, I should say, to perform and sell like you before you can step back and are allowed to actually step back. Right? So here's sort of bias, especially for my provider owners, right? Is that you actually have a little bit of survivor bias. And what I mean by this is that because you were good enough at selling and delivering excellence when it came to providing a great experience for your patients, you are oftentimes better at selling. And there's also just this thing, it's called founder's magic. And it's also just the idea, like when somebody knows they're getting a service from the founder as well too, there is just immediate credibility that you have by the very nature of you being the founder and the owner of the clinic. That is just a credential that you have without even trying, right? And so I find that oftentimes my clients are looking for their team members to hit their same numbers before they feel like they are allowed to step back. And it's just a mistake. Most of your team members are not going to sell as good as you. And the goal shouldn't even necessarily for them to be to hit like the 100% A plus of like, you're able to sell this much for this many days a week that you work, and then you're waiting for your team members to hit those same numbers. Your team members may only ever get to about 80% of what you are able to sell because they are not the owner founder. And there's a variety of reasons why that is the case. Now, there are exceptions to this rule. I have worked with clients where they are not the best at selling, and they have hired really, really great team members who totally outsell them. But I would say that that is in the minority. I would say most of my clients who are owners are also better, and if they're delivering services, they are better at selling. The other trap I see is you're waiting for some arbitrary moment where it magically feels safe to reduce your hours. I'm telling you right now, I have worked for folks who have been in business for 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, and that time never comes. If you wait until you actually feel ready, right? Till you actually feel like, oh, there's going to be some point in the future where I feel like comfy, cozy, and warm and snuggly, and it's going to feel great, right? Reducing my hours and stepping into having more CEO leader time. You will be waiting forever, because for most of you, that time will never come. What's interesting is there's this catch-22 as well, is when you are working and delivering most of your working hours, you don't have as much time as you need to become a really great leader, to become really great at actually coaching your team on selling, to become really great at implementing some of the marketing that you've been wanting to implement that's going to pull in and create that messaging ecosystem around more transformative results and becoming more known for whatever it is that you guys want to become thought leaders in. So what's interesting is that you don't end up having the time to actually build the systems to where you are going to have the messaging ecosystem, and then also the time to actually coach your team members as well too, because that takes time as well too. And this is true for those of you who have practice managers as well. You don't have the time to actually spend coaching the team members to sell more because you are spending too much time being the primary salesperson. So you see what I'm going with here? So you have to actually let go of some of that as well too, in order to actually have the time to develop that skill set, to develop that capability, if you will, in coaching team members to sell more, in being able to know what to look for when you're hiring, right? Into putting in the SOPs and the systems around your consults, around your offers, around your marketing, like we've been talking about. That actually will help all of your team members that aren't you actually sell more. And so it's one of those things where you have to actually make room to have the time to actually develop those skill sets in order for those things to happen, to where your team members will actually be able to sell more. So it can feel like a catch-22 because you're so busy. And for those of you who are good at selling and who are good at really bringing in a large volume of revenue every single month, this is where it can feel like you are a little bit trapped. Okay, so let's talk about how you can intentionally work yourself out. Probably every single month, a couple times a month at a minimum, I'm talking with a client about this, okay? And walking them through this. So how can you actually work your way out of being in the treatment room more? So number one is you have to come up with a date on your calendar. You have to start actually saying, okay, I am going to actually do this over time. I'm not going to go from seeing patients 5 days a week. This is not what Heather's saying. Heather is not saying, I currently see 5 patients a week and I'm doing over 100K in revenue myself alone. And then next week, we're going to drop it down to 0. And I'm just going to go into, being leadership and all that. That's not what I'm suggesting either. But what I am suggesting is that you will have to come up with an intentional actual calendar date and timeline for yourself to start pulling back the time that you're working. And so if you're, let's say, 5 days a week, and right now, as I record this, it is the first week of September, you might tell yourself, November 1st, I'm going back from 5 days a week to 4 days a week. And then, if it's November 1st, then it might be January 1st or February 1st. I'm going back from 5 days a week to 3 days a week, and so on and so forth, depending on how many days a week you want to eventually bring it down so that you have ample time to actually be the CEO leader of the business. The second thing you can start doing is also start pricing yourself higher. Your time is limited and valuable, so you want to price accordingly. You want to create space and protect the revenue. And so if you're going from 5 days a week to 4 days a week, but we're raising your prices, right? Because by the very nature, so the pricing matrix that I use with clients, that is sort of the filter that we are looking at your pricing through. There's 3 things in the pricing matrix. First thing is sustainability. Is this pricing sustainable? Is this pricing sustainable for me to build a practice that is thriving and profitable, where I can pay myself and I can pay my team and I can invest in marketing and I can do those things without feeling strapped all the time? The next two pieces of the pricing matrix is demand and positioning. I am so huge on positioning. If you didn't already know, what do you think a signature menu does? It repositions all of your offers. What do you think having a branded to you consult system does? It helps you and your team actually reposition your offers, right? What do you think an authority-based marketing system does? It flips all of your marketing and your messaging so that it links back to your signature offer. So it links back to your authority. So it links back to that thought leadership that you have, right? That's all positioning. So I am so huge on you guys repositioning yourself. But the other part is demand. For those of you who are owners who are actually delivering services, you have a lot of demand. And so those three things, sustainability, demand, and positioning. Okay, so we're solving, right? All of you are solving your positioning problem because you're creating a signature menu. You are redoing your consults and we're redoing your marketing. That's why you listen to this podcast, right? That's why many of you work with me as well too. Also, it positions you differently just by, and that's why I called it Founder's Magic. You are positioned by being the founder differently than the other providers and team members that you have just by being the founder, okay? And then also your demand, okay? For many of you, the demand is higher for you, so therefore you can charge more as well too, okay? And then because we're pulling back your time, your demand naturally will increase as well. So the third thing to do is to coach your team, but don't wait for perfection. Don't expect them to sell like you. It's okay. They don't need to sell the same amount as you. They need to sell as excellently as possible. For many of you, that will be, for those of you who are really good at selling, it's probably like they're going to sell 80% to whatever your 100% was. Your job is to lead and level them up over time. Leadership isn't about waiting until your team gets better. It's getting in the trenches to coach them while making the space to lead. And so you have to really be able to actually map up enough margin and white space on your calendar so you actually have the time to lead them. So there's no magical milestone where you are going to suddenly feel like it's safe to reduce your hours. You don't want to wait your way into freedom. You decide your way there. And one last thought that I just want to leave for you all is that I have lots of clients who aren't providers too. Lots of clients I've worked with over the years who are not former practitioners who own a med spa or an aesthetic practice, or who were former practitioners or whatever they may have been and no longer actually provide services. But I say this to you that, I think of some of those clients who just from day one weren't providing the services themselves and were able to build thriving practices and med spas and aesthetic clinics and wellness clinics and whatever it might be from the get-go, right? And the benefit of that, the hard part of that is that they had to invest in team and other things from right away. They had less control, if you will. But the benefit is that they had to put the systems in play in order to be profitable enough to not just be the main technician in the business as well too. So I share that with you just so you know it's totally possible for you. I want each and every one of you to be able to have that freedom-based business where the whole reason you got into business is so that you can have time with your family, so you can maybe be at some of your kids' stuff during the week for those of you who have kids, so that you have time on the weekends, so that when you go on a vacation, you don't feel like, holy cow, we're going to lose half of our revenue for the month because I'm going on a vacation. It is just a really quick way to burn out, and that's not what I want for any of you. So that is what I have for you this week, my friend. If you are interested in learning more about how you can actually put our systems into play. I'll link up some more information on our programs. The best way to probably start right now is actually with Ask Heather AI. And at the time that this recording drops, we have a really great trial offer right now that I will link up in the show notes for you to go check out as well too. That's what I have for you this week, my friend. I will see you next week.